What's up, guys? This is Steve here from Geek with another Blender tutorial. Now, I know it's been a while. I've been gone, and I'm upset about that. I'm ashamed about that, but I'm back now. I apologize for my absence, but I'm here with a new tutorial on how to create realistic trees. Now, I know I've done a tutorial on this a few years back, but that was using the internal Blender add-on, and it gives you okay results with kind of a distant tree, but this is going to be way more customizable, way easier to use, and you'll have all your settings there to be able to change whenever you want. So a ton of customizability and more realistic. So I thought I'd do an updated tutorial on how to do this. So I'll jump right into it now. Using this cube, I'll scale and, well, I'm just messing with you guys. I know how this works. Roll the intro. Alright, so before I jump headfirst into this tutorial, I want to give a little announcement. I have just released a new realistic tree asset pack, where you get 4 realistic trees, all different types, with tons of customization, whatever you want to say. It comes with all kinds of options to change the tree and adjust it to however you so desire. For example, they're all rigged and ready to use, so everything has been rigged and set up with IK constraints, so it's really easy to adjust the branches, move them around, whatnot, and you can also change the leaf color. The leaves all have double sides, so you have the top and back side of the leaf to give it just more realism, and the bark texture is completely procedurally generated with randomness, so you can totally change how those work there as well. So just lots of realism, lots of realistic trees for your scenes. For example, here's a scene where I used them in the background and foreground, and it just added a whole lot of realism. They're really easy to use, and the asset pack is only $10. So if you're interested in that, head over to my page on Blender Market and check it out. Also, thank you so much to all my Patreons. You guys have been amazing. You guys have kept me going these last few months, and as a perk, any of the $8 Patreons will get the new asset pack free immediately right now. So if you're interested in my Patreon page, go ahead and check that out as well. But enough talking. Let's just get into it. So I'm giving away all the textures needed for a single tree for this tutorial, so there'll be a link in the description, but that includes the displacement maps, the spec maps for the leaves and the back-sided leaves and the bark and everything you need, all in the description link there. So that's a little gift for you guys, and if you like what you see, I'd definitely appreciate you guys picking up the realistic tree asset pack. But on to the tutorial, enough talking. Okay, so to start, I'm just going to delete my realistic cube. It's very realistic, as you can tell, so I'm just going to delete it. And we're going to use a little bit of a reference image of an ash tree, because I like to start with the real image in the background just to kind of add something to reference when I need to, when I'm extruding my tree branches and stuff. It just kind of helps to see what it really looks like for some references. So I'm going to hit N to bring up my Properties tab here, choose Background Images, and open the image. Link to in the description for this tree as well, but just a basic ash tree. I can kind of adjust the placement of this background image by lifting up the y-axis here. So I'm just going to raise this value until I get it right around the red line there, and maybe a little bit on the x-axis as well. Right around there. Whoa, not there. Right around there is good. Okay. So to start, we're going to use the skin modifier. So you can close the Properties tab now with N. And all we need to really start is a single vertex. So to do this, I'm going to go Shift A, add in a cube, and just Tab, and then Alt M. Merge it all at the center. So we have all those vertices merged into a single vertex ready to use. So go ahead to your Modifiers tab now, add Modifier, and use the Skin Modifier, Skin Modifier. You see right now it's just a blank cube, but if we add a Subdivision Surface modifier to it with Control 2, tab out of edit mode first, Control 2, there we go, and it automatically adds in our subsurf there. You can see we have a round ball, and this will be the base to a tree. So let's tab in edit mode and give it one extrusion. So just hitting E, I'll pull it up, and you can see we're making a trunk. Now I want to make the base here the root. So you can go ahead and go mark root, and then you see your orientation comes to that vertice there. Awesome. So now to kind of adjust our tree, we can scale it with Control A, and that will scale the width of it. And we're going to want another vertice in here, so you can just select both vertices with Shift, right-clicking, then W, subdivide. Another thing that is really helpful is to be able to see the vertices through the mesh. So to kind of bring that up, there's a setting right in here where you can go draw a wire. No, let me see. There's an option for X-ray. I believe that is what I wanted, right? No. Okay, so the setting you're looking for is while you're in edit mode, select your vertices and click that button there. I always have a hard time finding that setting, so my bad. Right there, not over here. But now we can see our vertices through the mesh. And I'm just going to kind of pull this down to make the trunk a little sharper and better placed like that. All right, now kind of extruding up right about there. Now with the method we're going to be using to add a rig to this tree, every vertice gap is going to be a bone, basically. So it's going to make life way easier, but you also just kind of have to keep that in mind. You kind of want to leave a vertice also at every branch splitting off point, so you can easily extrude that and go. So kind of keep that in mind while you're building your tree. And I'm just going to extrude it again and scale it down a little bit more. But here you can see we have like a split. So I'm just going to kind of go off this direction with my tree. Kind of up there, giving it some of that cool curvature, scaling it down a little bit, Alt A. You can also turn proportional editing on here, so enable that to connected. And now when you Alt A, you see you have that box, which is going to make it easier to scale everything evenly at the same time. So I'm going to kind of extrude this again. I can't really see where that tree branch goes. I think it kind of goes off this ways. So we'll kind of take a twist there, kind of go up this way. This is kind of cool. Scaling it down again, and again, remembering to leave a vertice point at your splits where you'll be branching off. And then go up again, scale a little bit more. And we're not going to go to the very tip of the branches, but we're going to go pretty close. So somewhere around there is going to be fine. And then, like I said, for branching off, we can come back to that vertice, extrude it off, and you see you get that nice split. You can kind of just scale it down a little bit till you get the perfect split, and then you can continue extruding onwards. So it's very fun, actually, and easy to do using the skin modifier. I love this modifier. I've used it multiple times already, and it's been a real lifesaver for these custom trees. And it just makes life so much easier. I mean, imagine if you were doing this with like actual mesh vertices and stuff. It'd be such a pain. Having it automatically done for you like this is just amazing. All right, so we have that up there, right around like so. And then we have the split here too, so we'll extrude that branch up, scale it down. I think this base could be a little bit bigger here. We don't really have to follow the tree. Whoop, that's a little too big. We don't really have to follow the tree exactly though. We can plump this tree branch up a little bit if we want. And then just continue extruding onwards. So the nice thing about doing trees is nobody can say, hey, that doesn't look right, because a tree is completely random. It's nature, you know. It can grow any which and way depending on how it was planted or where it was located. So no one can tell you that it doesn't look good because maybe it's just that kind of tree. So that's the fun thing about making trees. Alright, so we have a branch down here too that's not super fat. So I'm just going to do a small extrusion like that and then scale it way down. For this, you don't really want proportional editing, so I'm just going to tone it way down. And then get it to be about the right size there. Whoops, you do not want to hit F because that will make a face. So just Control Z if you do that. Alright, so kind of scale it up a little bit. Get that nice little curvature going. And yeah, nice. Extrude along a little bit. We got a little split here, so I'll just scale that down, extrude that one this way, and so forth. So at this point, I feel like you guys get the idea. I know you're smart. You guys are catching up pretty fast, and yeah, I mean, it's basically extruding. You're using the extrude key, and you're using the Alt Control, I mean not Alt, but the Control A option, and then I'll save it every once in a while. So yeah, it makes it really easy, and it's just a few short key combinations to basically do this whole process. All right, so looking pretty good. Maybe another split right here. But before I leave you guys to just kind of go at it and have fun, I want to show you another angle of this, because while this is looking good from front view, you turn and you can see, uh-oh, by hitting middle mouse button, I'm doing that. You can see our tree is flat. So this is where the proportional editing is really handy. You can kind of crank up the size of that and pull it out that way. As you see, sometimes the skin modifier gets off a little bit and just need to tweak your location, your vertices a little bit. And I'll have this branch kind of coming forward here. And you can see it kind of works its way out. But yeah, you need to kind of move them from both angles because it's 3D and not just a solid 2D tree. And I'm feeling that looking pretty good, actually. Some nice curvature in there. Let's pull these branches out a little bit more. And there is an awesome start to our tree. I'm going to continue. You can see, like here, for example, you might have to just turn off proportional editing with O. You hit it twice if you had it unconnected, so there we go. And you can kind of just tweak that vertice around a little bit until you get it a nice seam. Yeah, like so. Like so. So that looks okay. And I'll just continue expanding my tree a little bit, adding a few more branches, but I feel like you guys get the idea now. So I'll let you guys finish up this part of the tutorial on your own, and I'll be back with you guys as soon as you're happy with your base tree. So happy tree making, and I'll see you guys in a sec. And there we have it. So after another 10-20 minutes of tree editing, I just added a few more branches, and like I said, you kind of want to keep checking all angles of it just to make sure nothing seems like flat. It's all natural, kind of growing outwards. And this is all we really need for our base tree. So another thing we can do is in our modifier settings, choose smooth shading. That'll just make it look a little nicer. And you also might want to just kind of check over one more time for these kind of areas here where you need to possibly move a vertice around a little bit to get a cleaner skin joint, I guess I'd call it. But something like that is more like what you need. And that looks okay. There we go. Whoops. Just up a little bit. Right about. Sometimes it's finicky. Just kind of find that right spot. That happy place. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Also areas like this, you just might want to tighten up some of those seams. And you do have some settings here for the branch smoothness, I guess. And kind of tweaking that down a little bit, or up a little bit, I should say. Kind of helps a little bit tighten up those seams like I was talking about. Alrighty, so we're ready to move onwards. This looks a little bit on the skinny side here. Maybe just... Alright, that looks a little better. I don't know, something about in here looks a little skinny, so maybe I'll just W subdivide and yeah, give that a little bit more beefiness that way. Okay, so let's start by rigging. We can go ahead and rig this tree up. That one looks a little small there, so maybe I'll... It's a little finicky. That area there, though, might... Yeah, see, that's why you don't want to use too much of this, because it does kind of shrink areas that you don't want as well, so be careful with that setting. But okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to... Well, let's first work on this trunk just a little bit. Let's scale up that base. Yeah, give a little better base there. Okay, so to make the rig, you can see there's an option right here for create armature. So that is almost like cheating. It's so easy. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And if I hit Z to see the wireframe, you can see we have a rig created to our tree. So that's pretty amazing. Basically, it just uses all your vertice points to put bones in those areas. So you have a rigged tree. Now you can see if I go into pose mode on these bones, I can control the branches. And that is completely amazing. But it can be even better. Because right now, as you can see, like, yeah, you can have some adjustments, but you can't, like, if you want to move this whole branch, you can't realistically do that. So I'm going to go in and change a few of these bone settings, add a few constraints to show you guys how you can really make it super easy to customize your tree. So first of all, I prefer to see my bones as B bones. So in object mode, I'm going to go to my bone settings here. And let me just pull this down a little bit. Maybe I want to be in pose mode, actually. Where is it? Somewhere, maybe it's under edit mode. Somewhere where you can change the bone type. Alright, so under edit mode, you go to your armature settings and you have the display options here. So B-bone is what I prefer. And then you can take them all and just, let me see here. Is it Alt Scale? Alt Scale. I think it might be Alt Control S. And you can scale the size of those B-bones. So Control Alt S. And just kind of scale them all down to something more like so. And then you can also come back if you want to be fancy and scale some of them up for the base, etc. But it really doesn't make much difference. So we'll just leave those as they are for now. I do like to give them the X-ray option as well, though. So let me see. That is kind of doing it, but how come I'm not seeing it down in there? Okay, so can't find the option for making the rig visible underneath the object in object mode, underneath the mesh in object mode. I'm pretty sure there's an option for that, and if you guys know the option, drop it in the comment section, and I'll pin that one to the top. But in the meantime, we can move forward, because you can still see the rig fine in pose mode, for the most part, if I go into wireframe, anyways. So we'll go ahead and do that. So to kind of rig this up, I'm going to use a few IK constraints. And to do that, I'll show you right now. I'm just going to grab this bone. I'm going to Shift D. And then you can see, whoops. I need to do this in object edit mode. So I'm going to grab that bone. I'm going to Shift D it. And then just hit Escape. And hit W. Switch direction. And then I'm going to hit N to bring up the name of the bone here. And this is bone 26. I'm just going to hit .IK. Alrighty. IK. That was lame. Alright, so now in the bone settings here, I'm going to go to the Constraints tab. I need to do this in pose mode now. So the Constraints tab, and I'm going to add Bone Constraint and choose Inverse Kinematics. Now this is going to be targeted to the armature, and the bone is going to be the IK bone, and the length is going to be, hold on. I need to add this to the other bone here. This one. I'm sorry. Inverse kinematics. Target is armature, bone is the IK bone, and then the chain length is going to be just to the base of the tree, so the length of the branch. So we'll change that to 4. Now you can see if I grab this, well, it's kind of working. I have it, there we go. There we go. Okay, I just grabbed the wrong bone there. You can't grab the constraint bone. You want to grab the IK bone here. Okay, you get it? So you can see with that now, we can adjust the whole branch. Now, to kind of make that IK bone stand out a little bit more, I like to scale it up a little bit with Control-Alt-Scale. And then you can scale it along the x-axis there too. Scale along the x-axis. Just so we have that, I'll scale up a little bit more. Just so you have that cube that you know what to grab, and you can move the whole branch around. So that is how you kind of set up the IK physics for these branches. Now I'll do one more real quick, and then you guys can set up as many of these as you want for the ultimate control over your tree. So I think I'll use this one to control this whole branch. So again, I'm just going to go to edit mode. I'm going to Shift D, W, switch direction. That's important. You can't miss that one. And then go back to pose mode. I want to name this bone that I just duplicated here. Is that the one I duplicated? Yes, it is. To .IK. I'll scale it down, and then I'll Alt-Control scale it up. Now I'll grab the bone right there, add the constraint, inverse kinematics. We're going to choose the target to be the armature, the bone to be that bone, which is 64, and then the length to be as many as it takes to bring it to the base of the tree. Now when we grab our IK bone, we can move our whole branch with it. So you can see how this is going to be awesome for being able to animate or just pose your tree however you like, and it works great. So go ahead and add more of those. I'll do that in a second with the camera off so I don't waste your time. But that's how you do the IK bones to the rig. And so I kind of took the easy way out and just added a few more IK bones, but it's all you really need. I added just a few of them at the top of the longest branches to kind of move that entire branch, as you can see here. So that will still help and give you some realistic animation abilities. Plus you still have the other ones we did down here. So that is all you really need for the basic animating purposes. The ones for sale and the asset pack have a few more options and bones to adjust, but it's the basic concept. So let's move on to the next part, which will be, we'll add the branches to it. Why not? We could start on the materials now too. Doesn't really matter, but I kind of want to get to the branches next. We'll leave the materials for the end. So to start on the branches, I'm just going to move to layer 2 so we keep it nice and clean. And I don't need my background image anymore, so just disable background images right there in your Properties tab. And I'm going to use an add-on to bring in my images, and that is the Images as Planes add-on. Probably my most used add-on because it's so handy, and I use it for pretty much every scene I work on. So just start typing out planes in your user preferences add-ons, and enable the Import Images as Plane add-on. So now I can go Shift A, Images as Planes, and we can import the textures. So go ahead and download those textures that I mentioned at the beginning of the tutorial down in the description, the free ones I've given out from the asset pack. And you'll see you have 2 different leaves here, and we're going to start with ash leaf 1, not the back, because that is the underside of the leaf. And so we're just going to import that there, and from top view, you can see we have it, but it's rotated wrong, so I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees along the y-axis. Now if I just turn this to textured view, I could see more accurately what it is, but hold up. I'm still in Blender render, and that's going to import it with the wrong materials. So it would just be a little simpler if I delete that, change this to cycles render, and now do the same thing again where I Shift A, Mesh, Images as Planes, and grab leaf 1. Because you can see over here you have some material settings when you import one. And yeah, so it's going to import it for cycles this way. Now I want to change the alpha to pre-multiplied just because that looks a little nicer in the viewport anyways. So go ahead and do that, pre-multiplied in the alpha mode, and then import ash leaf 1. Rotate it 90 degrees along the Y, and if we change the viewport to textured, we see our leaf there. So now I also want to rotate it negative 90 degrees, so we have it facing upwards when we're in top view with number pad 7. And I'm just going to tab into edit mode and move it so the stem of the leaf is at the origin point right there. Awesome. So we have our basic leaf there, and I'm going to just hit period to kind of center my view on it. And I'm going to add just a little bit of detail to it by hitting tab, W, and subdividing it. This way I can kind of give it a little bit of a bevel, kind of pull down the corners a little bit, maybe lift that one up, just to give it a little bit of that 3D dimension-ish look. And then you get those sharp edges, but if you change the smooth shading, that gets rid of those. So that looks all right. Maybe let's pull it down a little less severe. And let's work on the leaf material, because once I have one leaf material done, it will be easy to pass it on to the next one. So I guess we kind of are getting into the leaf materials because it just makes it easier when you're duplicating this object to already have the material set up on it. So I'm going to split the window here, and we'll bring up our node editor. Just close off our properties tab there, give ourselves a little bit more room. And you can see this is the texture that is automatically added by our awesome add-on. So it kind of gives us a little head start on what we'll be doing. Pretty much, I just want to leave the mix shader and the transparent shader at the end of my node tree, and then I'll pull this back towards the beginning. All right, so first and foremost, let's just give it the basic displacement map. So for the leaf, I'm just going to use the color as the displacement because it works pretty good on a leaf like this. So all I have to do is add in the vector bump and then grab the color as the height. And I can drop in a color ramp right in there. So Shift A, color ramp, to give myself some options on adjusting that bump map. And then I'll just connect the bump to the normal on my diffuse node. That is a basic bump setup. So if I go to rendered view here, I'm not going to see anything because I don't have any light in my scene. So maybe this would be a good time, usually I do it when I'm setting up my materials anyways, to open up an HDR map. So I'm going to go to our environment settings here, choose use nodes, click that little box next to color, and it's going to be environment texture. Now I'm going to open up an HDR. It's actually a free one from Greg Zoll's awesome website, HDR Haven. Definitely check that out. I'll put a link in the description too. He's got some awesome free HDRs that are insane quality. So you'll love them. They give you great lighting, full dynamic range, blah, blah, blah. Everything you want in an HDR pretty much. So go ahead and check out Greg Zoll's website on HDR Haven and download this dry field if you want a nice HDR map for practicing with. They're free. I'm just going to use the 4K version of it. And that's all you have to do. After you do that, it will be already set up. So when you go rendered, you will get your leaf rendering. Now you can see that the bump is crazy strong. We don't want that, so we'll just take that down to about a 0.3 for now. Probably even less. But like I said, I also want to change the color ramp settings here. And I'm going to enable one more add-on for making our node material setup a little easier. And this is actually another node add-on that is created by Greg Zoll. So shout out to Greg Zoll, you're awesome. I'm going to go ahead and go to the add-ons here and just start typing node wrangler. And go ahead and enable that also, because that's made by Greg Zoll. Alright, so going Control-Shift now, I can just click on my color ramp here and see exactly what my bump map is looking like. And kind of pull in the white values a little bit to take out a little bit of the bump in areas we don't need it. And then pull in the black a little bit just to make the black areas definitely bumped. Alright, now if I check out what that's looking like now, not too bad, except I want to invert that map. So the black is kind of coming out, not going down. Actually, no. I want to invert it on the bottom texture, but not the top texture. So that will do it for there. We'll just take the strength down to about a 0.1 now. So we have a decent amount of bump on that. That's looking pretty good. You can increase the distance a little bit. And that will make like your main bumps a little deeper. So that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to add a simple bit of glossiness to this now. We'll go ahead and add our transparent shader there by just Alt-Shift clicking on that to connect it up. And I'm going to go ahead and add the mix shader and the glossy shader. We'll drop some glossiness onto that the leaf, and we'll give the glossy a bump factor as well. And then for the mix factor, we're going to use Fresnel. Fresnel, I think it's how it's pronounced. I know a lot of people corrected me last time I used that word. So Fresnel shader, and we'll drop it in as the factor. You can see with the Fresnel, it goes completely glossy at certain angles, and that gives you a more realistic representation of light. So I'm going to take this IR down a little bit, and then also give that the bump. And there we go. So that gives you some nice realistic glossy shading. Still too strong though. So we can still tweak the amount of that here in a second. You can see when it's right there, it's still completely glossy, and that's way more than I want. So a few things that we can do is first, well, I'm just going to drop in a converter math. Drop it right into the Fresnel amount here. I'm going to change it to multiply, and now I can tweak the amount of that by just changing the value down. So now we still have our glossiness, but it's just way toned down. When we go to the side there, maybe a little bit more, you can see it's getting glossy, but just not a crazy amount. Now the last thing I like to do is you can give your roughness a little bit of tweaking too with another color ramp. So I'm just going to Shift D that color ramp, drop the color into it just like for the height, but this time drop it into the roughness. And we'll kind of tweak these colors to give the white highlights, I think is going to be where it's more rough. I said I think because I'm pretty sure it works that way. So if it doesn't, we can always invert it. So I can just do a test here. If you bring it way extreme, these white areas should be glossy and the black areas should not be. So to quick check that, I'll just go Control-Shift there. And when we look at it from a steep angle, yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell with the amount being down, but if I crank the amount up, yeah, you can see that these areas are glossier. And these areas, well, maybe it is inverted. So you might want to flip that actually. Go to it. And if you find this confusing, don't worry about it. This is just like for that very fine extra detail. Yeah, I think that looks a little nicer. So there you go. With it all put together, it looks like that. So we have these areas glossy. Let me see what my original texture looks like. Well, I'm going to go back to this one because I like the way it looks better. So with a bump, and then with a glossy, all combined, just tone down the glossy a little bit. And there we have it, our leaf. So that is the basic material. I hope you guys didn't find that too confusing. I know sometimes people complain that I go a little too fast in the node editor. But here it is if you just want to screenshot the final node setup. Very simple, just the bump, the glossy, and the transparent node. So very simple. But what I'm going to do now is for the last step, I'm going to select all of these Shift D to pull them down, and just change the texture here to the leaf one back. And now, with a little magic, I'm going to use another mix shader right here. Just duplicate it, drop it in there, connect the bottom set of materials now to the bottom slot. And I'm going to add in an input. I believe it's the geometry node. And you can see you have this back-facing option. So you guessed it. All we have to do is connect that to the factor. And when we look at it from the other side, we have a new texture, I believe. I think I might actually be looking at the back side of it right here, which means that all I want to do is tab into edit mode, select all, hit T, go into shading and UVs, and flip the direction of the normals. If you click this button here in your properties tab, you can see which direction the normals are facing. And now they're facing upward like I want. So just flip the direction of the normals there. You can close off those now. And when I go to rendered view, we have our leaf on top, and we look at the bottom, and we have the back side of the leaf. Awesome. Now for the back side of the leaf, you just want to choose invert for the bump map, and that will make it look a little bit better, I think. But there you go, a double-sided leaf with the texture on both sides. Now, one thing I did not mention, which is very important, so we'll add it now, is the subsurface scattering. So when you're using a bunch of these leaves on top of your tree, you really need good subsurface scattering, because you can use translucent, which basically lets light pass through, but it's not going to do as good of a job, in my opinion, for realistic leaves as subsurface scattering will do. So enough talk, let's just add it in. How do you use it? It's very simple. We're just going to use it just like a glossy node. We'll duplicate the mix shader, and then we'll Shift A, add in the shader subdivision surface. Right there. I'm just going to leave it to cubic, because that's like the fastest, I believe, and it's all we really need. So connect that to the bottom there. You can see it looks kind of crazy. Now, one thing is we have to leave the transparent node after it. So we do have to move this mix shader onward and pull this one back so it is before the transparent. Alright, so we'll just do that real quick, like so. And you can see the subsurface scattering right now makes it completely white looking, because that's what's in the color. But we're going to take the picture image texture there and drop in the color. Now we get that very rich looking leaf, and you can see, well, you can't see yet because I didn't add it to the back side, but it's letting light pass through. Now you really don't have to change much of these settings. I might make the radius a little bit more to add more subsurface to it, the scale here, maybe like a 1.5. And then the radius I like to give just a little bit more green. So these values are red, RGB, so red, green, blue. So I like to take the red and the blue down a little bit and leave it just a little bit more green for the light to kind of pass through, being greener. But that's about it. You see we have a normal input here too, so you can connect your normal node up to that subsurface node. And then the amount is controlled right here with the mix factor as well. So I'm going to leave that about 0.45. And that looks pretty good. So all we have to do is add this to the bottom material here as well, because I already duplicated these, but no big deal. Just grab the mix and the subsurf, Shift D, drag them down to here, and then connect this mix to this one, to the transparent, just like I did before. And then of course you have to connect the texture to the color and the bump to the bump, and we're good to go. When you go to the underside now, you'll see we have some light passing through. And alright, so we have the subsurface scattering added, the glossy, the bump. This leaf is about as realistic as it gets. So all I have to do to add more leaves now is, I said I have two textures, because you never want just one. It can always look better with more than just one leaf, because variation, yo, you want it. So I'm going to go ahead and go Shift A, Mesh, hello, Images as Planes. Grab that leaf 2. We're going to rotate it just like we did the other one, so 90 degrees along the Y. Now it's upside down, so I also want to flip the normals. Let me just go Tab, Flip Direction under Shading UVs, and rotate it negative. Or is it negative? Let me just see. 90 degrees. If I switch to textured view. Yeah, I want to rotate it 180 now. to get it facing the right direction. Perfect. So I'm going to also move this to be on that little orange origin point there. Just drop it in right there, real good. And there we go. So what we want to do is we want to take this material and put it on here and then just change the textures. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this ash leaf 1 material. I'm going to make ash leaf 2 the ash leaf 1. So that you do that and you see the texture is wrong because it's just like that one. So you hit the little checkbox there. That's the most important part to make it a separate material. So hit that checkbox, so then 3. And then all you have to do is change the text here to ash leaf 2 and then the bottom one to be ash leaf 2 back. You can see the texture's changed. And when we go rendered, we have 2 separate leaf materials and they're both different on the other side as well. So awesome. And that is the leaf material done and dusted. We can add a little bit of 3-dimension to this plane as well now that we have it added in here. But yeah, there is our realistic leaf material. And I hope you guys enjoyed that little segment on how to create realistic leaves. Okay, so now that we have these leaves, let's put them on a branch. So we're going to have to make a branch, and you guessed it, we're going to use the skin modifier just like before. Super quick. All we have to do is add in the cube, tab in edit mode, Alt M, merge them at the center so we have that single vertex, and add in the modifier, skin modifier. So this time I'm going to scale it down quite a bit. So just go Alt A or Control A, scale it way down, and then start extruding. So I'll extrude it up once, scale it down some more. Let's make this the root like before. Scale it base down a little bit more too. So we have this nice little twig branch. And this, I'm not going to use a reference image because it's basically a branch. So you can go kind of crazy, do whatever you want, turn on proportional editing to speed your workflow up a little bit. So I'm just going to do that. Alt A to scale everything down a little bit. And then just to kind of extrude it out. You're going to basically just want some twigs to add leaves to. So really that is all you need. But I'm going to add in another split here, kind of coming that ways. I'll go to the side view, pull it down, scale it down, and extrude it out one more time. Kind of give them all some 3-dimension, and then just the more little branching off branches you put onto it as little twigs on the tree, the more realistic it will look. So don't be afraid of adding lots of just fine little branches here and there. But yeah, you can be creative with this. I think I'll put this one over on this side. Yeah. Perfect. So that is really, really all you need right there. Maybe I'll just put a little twig on that. All right. So now that we have this simple tree branch, I'm going to apply the skin modifier. So go ahead and apply. Now if you tab into edit mode, you can see you have all these extra vertices. And we don't want that because we want to keep this pretty low poly so we can put it on our tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the vertices, go X, and here's a little trick I learned. It's called limited dissolve. And it will basically delete vertices all in a row like we wanted right there. There's some settings here to change the angle. If you see it ruining any parts of your mesh, you just want to crank that up a little bit. But once you get rid of the bulk of the vertices, you're pretty much good to go. So leaving it around 3 seems to be good for me. So go ahead and do that. Tab out of edit mode. You can see it's much lower poly now, which is perfect for what we want. All right, so that part is good. Now, let me quick move this branch over here a little bit more. Yeah, just kind of spreading her out nicely. Now what I'm going to do is add a very quick and easy weight paint map to it. So in top view, I'm going to hit F to make my brush bigger and change the strength a little bit. But basically I'm just adding weight paint to the tips of these branches. Something like that is all you really need. Maybe put a little bit down there. All right. Check around your mesh to make sure you got all the sides of it nicely. And that's all we really need. So now we can distribute these leaves across our tree branch here. So I need to make a group out of these leaves. So I'll just pull them over here. And before I do that, what I found added a nice bit of realism is kind of bunching these leaves up a little bit. So instead of just having two separate leaves as a group, I made a third one, which I'll just Shift-D, duplicate this leaf, Shift-D, duplicate that leaf, pull them over here close to each other, grab them both, and go Control-J to join them together. So now I can grab each of these leaves by hitting L and grab that one first, kind of rotate it, place it in there. If I switch to texture, you can see more what I'm doing. And I'll hit period just to kind of zoom in on that. And I'm just going to kind of create a little bunched up bunch of leaves here. And this will help with the realism as well, because leaves kind of grow in bunches. You'll have some on their own here and there, but then you'll also have them just kind of bunched up, different sizes, so scale them down a bit. But yeah, basically always together, a little tight. So something like that is basically all you need for this tree. You could add more. Maybe I'll just duplicate this one more time. Put her over here, scale it down a little bit. And you could even change the geometry too by stretching some of them out a little bit to give them even a little bit more variation. But yeah, that looks all right to me. Maybe pull this one in as a little squattier leaf. Awesome. So with these three meshes now, we'll just grab them all together. Alt-G. Whoops, I'm sorry. Control-G. And you have a group now. Right here, we'll name the group Leaves, just to keep life simple. We'll grab our twig branch here. And before we put these leaves on it, we want to first rotate them. So the best way to have your leaves orientated to use in a particle system is to rotate them 90 degrees that ways. Don't ask me why, it just is. So go ahead and do that, and then under the twig branch we can go particle system, new particle system. We'll choose hair. We'll turn the amount down. We'll be using around 200 or so, maybe even 150 would be better. So right around 150. Go ahead and choose advanced, and then down towards the bottom we're going to choose group, and they're going to be the leaves. And then down even further, we're going to find vertex groups, change the density to be that group we created right there. All right, awesome. Now under the render, we want to choose rotation. Now we can make the size a bit bigger here so we can kind of see what they're looking like. And then we're going to choose rotation. We're going to have these be the global Z axis. Okay, maybe the object Z. Let me see. Nope, global Z. Now, I have these leaves orientated the wrong way. So I made a mistake. Basically, I want them to be orientated so they're rotated 90 degrees along the x-axis. Nope, actually, I want them to be... You can kind of just rotate them freely here to see exactly, but I need them to be rotated upwards there too. So I just rotated them 90 degrees upwards. So the orientation is they're along the red line facing along the green line, like that. All right? This is the X, this is the Y. So you can see from the top view now that the leaves are all facing flat, which is kind of how we want, because that's kind of how leaves grow. But we can add a bit of variation to that now by giving it a little bit of random value, changing the phase a bit, and then giving it a random phase. So we have those completely spread out and leafed out, but they're also kind of on the right angle for the branch. So there we go. Something like that looks pretty amazing. We can give it a little random size, make them a little bit bigger. And if we go to rendered view now, you can see we have our leaves nicely distributed realistically across our tree branches. So that is that. I'll make those a little bit bigger. Somewhere around that will probably be perfect. Maybe you can change the amount down a little bit if you have a lot of them like I do. But there is a single branch. Now, I'd encourage you to make at least one more of these branches to give it some more realism. I'll quick do that off camera, but then I'll be back with you guys to start distributing these branches on our tree. Okay, so I created another branch real quick and applied the modifier, deleted some of the vertices like before, and now to easily add the leaves to this, all we have to do is go to the particle system, new particle system, but we can take the same settings from before. So grab those particle settings, All we have to do then is tell it to use the new group we created for this branch, and it will automatically put the leaves, just like that one, on this tree. So there we go, we have another branch, and we're ready to start putting them on the tree. So why not? Let's just stick them on the tree now and see how awesome it all looks together. So on the tree, at this point, we need to apply our skin modifier. So you're going to want to turn down your subsurf quite a bit. I mean, you don't even need your subsurf on actually right now, but we'll just turn it down for now. Save your project file. What I like to do sometimes, if I'm not positive I'm happy with my tree yet, I'll just take it, Shift D it, and move it to a different layer. So I can always go back to that tree and tweak it again with the skin modifier. But on layer 1, I'm just going to grab our base tree here and apply the skin modifier. So you see we have our basic tree now applied. And now all I'm going to do is grab the tree and grab the rig, because we're going to have to do this again. And go Control P. So if you didn't catch that, I grabbed the mesh and then Shift right click the rig, Control P, choose with automatic weights, and then there you go, the rig is back to being applied. One thing you will want to do, so let me quick Control C that actually. One thing you want to do is your IK bones here. For some reason they're crazy big now, I don't know why, but scale them back down to being a regular size in pose mode, I guess would be better. Okay, they're big in object mode, but not in pose mode. Anyways, what you want to do is you want to grab those bones, and under the bone settings here, choose uncheck deform. So these IK bones do not deform the tree like all the other bones are. So just do that for all of those. Okay, and then in object mode, again, grab the tree, then the rig, Control P with automatic weights. Now we can jump to pose mode on our rig, and you can see we still have control over our tree branches. But we also have our, right there, our modifier applied. So that's pretty sweet. And with that done, I can create a weight paint just like I did for the branches, except I need to make sure to create a new vertex group because there's already the bone vertex groups on this. So come over to your vertex group tab, new, and we're going to just name this one branches so it's easy to find. And yeah, apply the branches to the tips of your trees just like the leaves. So towards when these branches start dwindling, we'll be adding more branches. You could turn off the view on your armature up there if you wanted to be able to see more clearly. But yeah, I'm just going to kind of paint them around the outside, not towards the inside, because you kind of want those no branches in there. Something like that. Make sure this one gets a little branches on it too. And that looks pretty good. So with that done, we can go ahead and go object mode. And we're going to have to quick make a group out of our branches as well. So jumping over to our branch layer, we're going to grab both of these. Now I'm going to have to apply the particle system before I can put this particle system on top of another particle system. It's not as confusing as that just sounded. But basically, I'm going to duplicate these just in case I want to go back and make changes to this particle system. So it's very simple. Just grab both of them, Shift D, pull them over here. And then we're going to go to the modifiers tab. We'll start with this one. You go convert, and then particle systems up here. We can delete that one now. And then with it still selected, so I didn't touch anything, I can just go Control J, and it'll apply all the leaves to my twig here. I can't rotate for some reason. There we go. I somehow checked that, but you don't want that checked. All right, so same thing here. We're going to go to the particle system, convert it first, delete it, and then Control J it. And there we go. It's applied on both of these. So just select both these now. Let me first check that. Okay, that's fine. Select both of these, go Control G, and this is going to be branches. All right, so back in our first layer, we create a particle system, new particle system. We're going to choose hair, advanced, and then drag down to our density. We're going to be branches, that vertex group we created. And then it's going to be group, and that group is going to be branches. So voila, we have leaves, but they're all pointing weird. So just like we did before, we have to orientate them so it works well. When we check rotation right there, and then rotation right here in the global Z. And you'll see they're all facing the wrong way. So I'm just going to go here and orientate them just like I have these orientated. So basically all you have to do is rotate them -90 from front view, so number pad 1. So they're facing the same way that these leaves were. And actually, let me see here. It looks like, yeah, they also have to be flipped around because this is the back side leaf, this is the front side, and these are opposite. Okay, so now we're just going to rotate 180 as well. Perfect. So back in layer 1, you can see all of our branches stick in one direction. One direction. All right. So here we can go random. Whoops. I want to change the phase to be 1, and then the random phase to be spreading it out completely around in a circle. So this basically makes it so all the leaves are facing upwards and all the bottom of the leaves are on the bottom. Excuse me. So awesome. All I have to do is give it some random value to give it a little bit more realism now. And you can see our leaves are distributed beautifully. I really am happy with the way this works. Give it a little random size and give up a little bit more size overall. And I'm going to turn off X-ray on my tree here now because that's just looking kind of stupid. There we go. There we go. There we go, yo. All right, now we have a few more branches than we really want, so I'm going to take this down to about 300. And that is looking pretty good. Pretty good. Actually, I said 300. That's 400. 300. Now you can also choose a different seed for your branches. This is another way you have complete customizability options for your tree. And you can also just make sure you have the right vertex group selected when you go here. Just kind of tweak where you want more or less branches. So this area looks kind of bare to me. So just add a little bit more weight over there. And you can see we get some more branches over there. All right. So there is our branches distributed. And we can obviously use our armature that I had hidden before. I'll unhide it now to move the branches with the other branches. So that's pretty cool. And but what you're all waiting for is to see what this looks like rendered. Now one issue is going to be we don't have the material for the bark yet. But in the meantime, let's just see what it looks like. We'll see those leaves realistically distributed, the light, the subsurface working on them perfectly, and it's all looking very, very realistic. So awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I know I say awesome a lot, but hey, it's awesome. So, yeah. I'm going to change the random size a little bit and make the overall size maybe just a tad bit bigger. It depends on the scale you're going for on your tree. All right, make that a little bit bigger. And cool. Cool. Holy cow. No, back to 0.62. 0.062. Very good. So the last thing is going to be the materials for the branches and our base tree. So the materials are included with the download that you guys downloaded for the leaves. And I first have to unwrap these. So I'm going to use a cheaty method because I like whatever is quick and easy. I'm going to hit U and unwrap using the Smart UV project. But first, I'm going to open up one of my textures over here in the UV image editor so I can kind of see what the unwrap is looking like. So go ahead and open. We're going to take the Ashwood texture 1, and this is just going to be the color. So here's one of the textures that I shot myself over the past summer and did a lot of editing to make them seamless and tieable. And yeah, you'll get a whole bunch of these with the Realistic Nature Asset Pack. But also, you got a few freebies that you can download in the description. So I'm going to go ahead and go U, Smart UV Project. Okay. And you can see it does a pretty good job of actually UV projecting all those vertices. So the only thing you want to tweak is when you have a branch like this. When it's going against the grain like that, it's just not going to look good. So we wanted to select all these. And we could basically just rotate them and kind of correct them ourselves by tweaking these vertices around a little bit right here. So super easy. Just kind of getting, you can even enable proportional editing in here, which is pretty cool right there. I will go connect it actually. And just kind of grab those and pull them nice and straight. So as long as they're facing downwards, they'll look pretty good. So like this one here, you have to get straighter. So something about that will look okay. And perfect. So that's our base tree. Now we also have to do our branch trees here. So go ahead and select both those. Same dealio, just U, Smart UV Project. And there we have a few more going the wrong way. So maybe try a different angle limit. Sometimes that helps. So I'll try 55. Nope. Let's try 45. See what that does. No, it's not really having much effect on these branches. So we're gonna have to kind of tweak those as well. Just grabbing let me here. If you hit L, you can select the whole branch, rotating them nice and straight, and grabbing those and pulling them up just so they're facing the right direction. On these twig branches, you really won't be able to tell unless you're getting macro close up if the grain is going the right way or not. But I'm a perfectionist, so I like to make it look good, like I'm sure most of you guys want to. So there we go. Back to our tree. We're going to work on this material, and then we can kind of copy it over to the branches later. So for this material, it is going to be pretty basic. It's way more advanced in the version I used in the realistic tree pack, but I don't have time to show you all of that, so I'm just going to show you the basic tree bark material, and you guys can expand it from there if you want, or if you want more, you could support me by picking up that nature asset pack for just $10. So here we go, new blank material. I'm going to go Shift A, add in a texture, image texture. This is going to be the bark. So we're going to go to the textures here and choose the color and just drop that into the diffuse. Alrighty, so let me kind of have this up here so I can just keep referencing how this is looking. So there's our texture, just way too big. So I need to add in an input texture coordinate and a vector mapping node. So I'm just going Shift A, scrolling down and grabbing those nodes right out of there. I'm going to choose UV to be in the vector there, and then the vector to be in the vector of our image texture here. And now I can change the scale of this. I'm going to go up to like 25, something big, something huge. And you can see that texture looks way better now, but that's a little bit too big, if you know what I'm saying. We'll take that down about 18. I mean, it kind of has to be in proportion to the leaves. So something about that. Yeah, looks a little bit better. Maybe even slightly less, actually. Okay. So that is the basic bark material. Now there's some stuff we can do to make that look even cooler. So duplicate your texture node there. We'll open up another one of these here. I'll start with the OCC for the ambient occlusion. So go ahead and give it the same vector, and this is just going to be a color mix multiplied over the bottom of it, and we'll change it to multiply. So if you want to kind of see what this is doing exactly, without it, it looks like that, and with it, it looks like that. So it adds black to the crevices and just adds some realism. I like to leave it around 0.8, so that helps there. Alright, now we'll duplicate that texture, connect the vector as you guessed, and open up another one. So this one will be the displacement, and for this I'm just going to add in a vector bump node, connect that to the height, and then connect the normal to the normal of the tree, and we have our displacement. Okay, we're going to take that down a bit, but you can see it's looking not too shabby. And we'll duplicate this again. This time I'll grab the normal. Now with the normal, you're going to have to be careful. I found that it was just totally killing my render time when I had multiple trees and this normal connected. So if you're going to be using this with a bunch of them, you're going to have to take out the normal node. If you're just using a single tree or something, go ahead, leave it in. But yeah, you're going to have to be careful with it. and you may not necessarily want to use it. I'll show you how to use it just because there'll be times when you can use it and you'll want to. So I'm going to go ahead and add a vector normal map. I'm going to change this from color to non-color data and then connect that to the strength right there. I mean, not the strength, but to the color. And then this normal map will be connected to the normal there. And you can see that gives us even more bump. You can put the UV map in there. You don't really, it automatically will use it if you don't, so you don't really have to. But and then take the strength of that down a bit to about a 0.5. I'll lower the displacement a little bit there. So there you go with that. Now I believe we have one more node to use, and that is going to be our spec. Yep, our spec node. So go ahead and do the same thing for that one. This time we're going to add in a mix shader. Excuse me. So shader, mix shader. Where we have it, right there. And we're going to use glossy, right there. Plug it into the bottom factor. Take this color to be the roughness. We can also give it the bump roughness. So we have it spread across our tree like so. And then I'm going to use the fractional node to add it in just a little bit on the right edges. As you can see, it does there so nicely. Plug the bump into the fractional as well. And then I'm going to add in a math node, converted math node, change it to multiply, and just kind of take that value down a bit. So we have a bit of that glossiness. Not too crazy, nothing too crazy, but you can see you get some of it coming in here. Nice and realistic. So that is basically it, guys, how you add the basic materials in the compositor. So you can see pretty simple node setup, nothing too crazy. Now the last thing I want to show you is how to add in a variation of this texture. So I have two textures that I kind of combined. In my realistic nature pack, I actually have like 4 of them that I combined, but for this tutorial, I'll just show you 2 of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of this, duplicate it up here, and all I have to do is change these over to the next bark material. So this is bark 1 spec. I'm going to go to bark 4 spec and change it to that one. Alright, this one's the color, so go to our second texture and choose the color right there. This one's the ambient occlusion, so go to that one, choose that one. This one's our displacement, go to the displacement on the new texture. Same here, normal, go to the normal. Alright, so this, if I go rendered, I'll show you the difference between these two textures. This one looks like that, and this one looks like that. Ooh, that doesn't look good, does it? Okay, something is messed up there. Alright, fixed it. I had just accidentally put the normal here as the displacement. So you just want to make sure that the normal is the normal and the displacement is the displacement. Okay, so you can see the differences now. This texture looks like so, and this texture looks like so. So they're both the same wood material, but just a different spot in the tree to give it variation. So to give it that variation, all I did was add in an input texture. Right here, input, la-di-da-di-da-di, maybe it's under, oh, texture, duh, idiot. Okay, texture, noise texture. And I also added in a converter mapping, or vector mapping node. There we go, connect that to there. And then the typical texture node right here, because I want it to be generated. Alright, actually it could be UV too, doesn't really matter, but I'm going to go generated. Okay, so if we check out what that noise texture looks like, it looks like that. I just control shift, right clicking on our node. I'm going to drop in a color converter color ramp. So it's black and white, and I can really kind of tweak this now. So make sure it's connected to the color there. I'm going to bring the black levels up and the white levels up, so you can really see our noise texture at work there. Excuse me. And I'm just going to use these as the texture to basically separate the two materials. So I'm going to make it a little smaller by actually making a bigger number by increasing the amount of noise in it. So I'm going to go to about 12. Okay, and now I'll give it more detail as well. I'll give that like a 12.2, so you have that fine detail. And even a little bit of distortion can give you some cool variation. So a little bit of distortion can work, all right? Alrighty, and now we're going to give it a little bit more black. All right, something like that. Not too shabby. Somewhere around there. Maybe take the scale up a little bit more. And there you go. You kind of have this Dalmatian-looking tree base. But this is the factor for our last mix node, which is going to mix the top and bottom materials. So drop that in the top one, that in the bottom one, and this one is the factor. So if we go to that now and zoom in here, you can see that we have both textures kind of mapped together to give it that ultra realistic realistic look. So that is pretty good, guys. I still think that this texture might be a little bit too many times repeated, so I can just change that down there. But that's gonna do it, guys, for the bark material there. So that looks pretty good. Like I said, in my finished results, I also added 2 more textures, one of them being moss and one of them being kind of rot, to really add to that effect. But that is how you do it, and I'll let you guys take it from there and go wherever you want with it. But this is looking pretty good. The last thing to do is going to be that those branches. So for those branches, I'm going to use the same material here, material 1. Just go over to our branches here, grab our twigs, add a new material, give it that material 1 texture, except click that button to make it its own, and then tab into edit mode, select just the twig with L if you need to, and assign it to that material. Same on this one. Unselect everything, hit L, hovering over the twig, and add in that new material. It's material 2 now, because we made it its own, and assign it. So that is basically this material, except we're going to change it a little bit. We're going to take the main color here on both of these, drop in just a color hue saturation. Alright, and I'm going to take that hue saturation from this material here, and I'm going to give it kind of a greenish hue by clicking it up once. So it's more of a greenish branch, which is kind of how they kind of tend to go. And maybe take the saturation down a little bit and take the value down a little bit on it too, just so it looks a little better. I'm also going to take the amount of bump down, because these are always a much smoother bark up here. And you know what? I'm just going to take out the normal node completely, because we don't need it. We don't need it for these little twigs. So there you have it. A bit better looking. I think I never unwrapped this one. My mistake. So just grab you, Smart UV project. All right. So when I render it now, you can see they both have the twig material. So yeah, just kind of tweaking this material a bit. I'm going to duplicate this hue saturation node to be on both of these materials here. Let me just try and get it in there. Yeah, it's not going to happen. Doesn't. All right, there we go. Drop it right in there. So it's more greenish looking. And again, down here for the second material, you got to remember to delete and turn down the strength. Cool. Very cool. So now we have our branch material and our twig material. Everything's looking pretty good. Maybe take the value down a little bit because it's just a little bright. And there we have it. So if we go back to our pretty much finished tree now, unless we want to make some tweaks to it, and let's take a look at it. I'll let that render out there real quick, and we'll just kind of see what we're getting. All right, so it's looking very good. Few things might just be that the glossy is a little strong, and so is the subsurface scattering. So what we can do is just select our branches over here. We'll just go top view. Sometimes it can kind of be hard to tell how much you want until it's put on the tree. So here we can kind of come and just take our subsurface scattering amounts down a bit. We'll have to go to our ash leaf material right there and take the scale down to 1. We don't need it to be any higher than that. Sometimes I gave it a little bit of sharpness just in case you feel like your leaves are getting blurry, because the more they kind of the light goes through it, this kind of controls how sharp it looks. So yeah, you might want to do that. And I'm just taking the values down to about 1 on the subsurface scattering. And then the mix as well, let's take that down to about 3.5 on both of these. Because too much subsurface and you get the kind of too dark of a tree, not bright enough. And then the value of the glossiness we'll take down a notch. Okay, something like that isn't looking too bad. And you can give your leaf a little bit of color tweaking as well. If you're unhappy with the way it's looking, maybe a little too yellow, I'm going to drop in a color hue saturation. So another cool thing I went ahead and added to the Realistic Nature asset pack for the trees is that I gave it the option to give it fall colors. And to do that, I've kind of shown it in a few of my tutorials, and I'm running out of time to show it now. But basically, you can add in random color to your leaves to give it the fall color look. And they also gave some cool controls to adjust when the fall color comes, so you can kind of have the fall color along the edges of the branches as it would if it's, you know, slowly changing, for animating it to a fall color even. So some pretty cool settings that I played around with there, and I got some pretty cool results. So you might want to check that out. So yeah, changing the hue just a little bit on some of these leaves gives it some variation, and also looks pretty good. So drop it to the bottom material as well there, right in there. And you could do both of them. I might want to do that. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. You might want to do it to hue saturation, drop it right in there, give it a little bit different. Might not want to do the same amount to give it that randomness I was talking about, but just a little bit can go a long way. All right, so with those changes made, let's kind of check out our tree here. I'm going to hit 5 to go into orthographic view here, so we can kind of get a better 3D perspective of it. And let's just let that render out there real quick. Alright, so the last thing I need to let you guys be aware of is that when you have all these transparent leaves working, you're going to get some weird black spots when you render, unless you go to your camera settings here and change the light pass. Give the transparency way more pass value, so you can basically have way more transparent materials in the same scene. So crank those both up to 64, and that will get rid of any of those weird black shapes that you may have had coming across your tree. But there we have it, guys. It's looking very nice. Maybe still a little bit too glossy would be my only thought on it. It'll depend on the angle you're looking at, and it also might look different with more or less leaves on it. But yeah, let me crank up the sampling here a little bit, just so we can see what it looks like a little nicer, and be right back. And there we go, there we have it. And the really cool thing, like I said about this, is how it's all rigged as well. So you can basically come in here, and if you're feeling like, oh, this area here is kind of bare, I really like some branches over there, you can come back later, grab your rig, switch to pose mode, grab one of those IK bones that you set up, and just move a whole portion of the tree over to where it works better for you. So super nice being able to have that kind of customizability, and also being able to animate it. You know, you can animate the wind effect and stuff with all of those. I parented it all to a single bone, so I can kind of control it as a wind factor, which worked really well. But there you have it, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial as much as I enjoyed making it for you guys. Really fun. And I had a lot of fun making all of the different tree assets for the Realistic Tree pack that, like I said, is now available if you're interested. I know some people out there can't afford it or whatever and like just doing things on their own, so that's cool too. But if you can afford it and wouldn't mind supporting me, I greatly appreciate that, obviously. But that's going to do it for this tutorial, guys. Your tree is ready to be used, to be put into a scene somewhere. You can tweak it as much as you want now. Like I said, you can change the seed to the branches even if you want to change that, or the scale of them, or whatever. It's completely customizable and ready to be used. Whoops. All right, so it's time to hang up, and I'll see you guys in my next video tutorial. So, bye-bye.